making the video. She set it on a Sunday night while standing by the kitchen counter, still in her blazer, phone face down like it had been placed there deliberately. She didn't raise her voice or soften it. She just said that maybe we should spend a week apart, nothing dramatic, just space, just to see if we missed each other. As she spoke, the phone lit up anyway. The vibration skidded at half an inch across the granite. The screen flashed a name saved as initials, followed by a small red heart. The preview line sat there long enough to read without touching it. Can't wait for Tuesday. It was Sunday. I didn't ask who it was. I didn't pick up the phone. I looked at her, nodded once, and said we could start the week the very next morning. She looked relieved, like something had gone exactly according to plan. She went to shower. I stayed where I was, watching the screen go dark again. By Monday afternoon, I had taken personal time from work, packed what I needed, and signed a short-term lease across town. The place was clean, empty, and quiet. By Monday night, my side of the closet at our apartment was bare. The bathroom shelf where my things used to be looked staged, like a model unit. I left the keys on the kitchen table next to a folded sheet of paper. It didn't explain anything. It just said the week had started and that I wouldn't interrupt it. By Tuesday, she didn't call. By Wednesday, she sent one neutral message that didn't ask much. By Thursday morning, she stood alone in the doorway of the apartment we shared, staring at the space where my life had been, finally realizing that I hadn't taken the week as a suggestion. I had taken it as a decision. 6 years earlier, the apartment had sounded different. Mornings were rushed but shared, coffee poured into 2 mugs, work schedules crossing on the fridge calendar. She used to talk through her days while taking off her shoes, pacing the living room, recapping meetings, complaining about clients who changed their minds mid-presentation. I'd listen while reviewing safety reports at the table, occasionally asking questions, occasionally nodding. It worked. 8 months before that Sunday, everything shifted without announcement. Her agency landed a massive rebranding contract for a consulting firm that suddenly dominated her schedule. She was assigned as the lead, which meant late evenings, constant calls, and dinners labeled as networking. She started coming home past 10, heels in hand, phone already glowing before the door closed behind her. At first, she talked about the work. Then she stopped. The details disappeared. The complaints disappeared. The stories turned vague and efficient, like summaries meant to end conversations quickly. Her phone stopped leaving her hand. It stayed face down on the table, even while charging. Calendar reminders started filling with initials instead of names. One set of initials showed up every Tuesday night. New dresses appeared in the closet, tags removed before I noticed them. They weren't for weekends or friends' birthdays. They were for client dinners. She said that once, casually, while adjusting her reflection in the mirror. I watched her leave in one of them on a Tuesday evening, makeup done carefully, hair untouched by hurry. She didn't ask what time I'd be home. She didn't say when she'd return. By the time she slipped back into the apartment after midnight, the lights were off. She moved quietly, phone lighting her path, checking something before setting it back down. The calendar on the fridge still had my name written on it. Her phone calendar didn't. A week before she suggested the trial, I left my phone on the nightstand and didn't realize it until I was already halfway to work. I turned back around at lunch, let myself into the apartment, and found the place exactly as I'd left it that morning. Her laptop sat open on the kitchen table, angled slightly toward the window. The screen hadn't locked. The email was already there, centered, unread. The sender's name filled the top line in full, not initials this time. Mark Kingston. The subject line referenced Tuesday night. The message itself was short, clean, written like something that didn't need explaining. It mentioned last week and asked if the same place still worked. No emojis. No hesitation. I didn't scroll. I didn't touch anything else. I closed the laptop the way it had been, exactly as I'd found it, and left the apartment with my sandwich still in my hand. Back at work, I stayed late. I pulled up her public calendar that evening while sitting in my truck in the parking lot. Tuesdays were blocked out for the past 2 months. Always the same wording. Always evenings. I checked her Instagram stories from those days. Wine glasses. Dim lighting. Captions about long meetings and big decisions. No faces. No team photos. LinkedIn filled in the rest without effort. Mark Kingston ran the consulting firm behind her agency's biggest contract of the year. 42. Well-connected. Recently divorced. Interviews, panels, charity boards. He looked comfortable in every photo, like someone used to being trusted. By the time I drove home that night, the pattern was already complete. Tuesdays matched. Locations repeated. Timelines lined up without gaps. When she came home close to midnight, she moved straight to the bedroom without turning on the lights. Her phone lit up once while she changed. I didn't ask where she'd been. I didn't need to. When she said the words about a week apart on Sunday night, the timing lined up too cleanly to be accidental. She framed it like a reset, like a harmless experiment, standing there with her coat still on, already halfway out of the evening. I agreed without asking questions, and she accepted that agreement without hesitation, which told me everything about how temporary she believed my absence would be. Monday morning, she left early, dressed for another full day of meetings. The door closed behind her the same way it always did. I didn't follow. I sat at the table until the sound of her car faded, then opened my laptop and requested personal time. No explanation. No pushback. By mid-morning, I was standing in a leasing office across town, signing paperwork for a furnished apartment available immediately. 2 months. Enough time to not rush anything. By early afternoon, I had keys, a parking pass, and a quiet place that already smelled like disinfectant and new carpet. I returned to our apartment while the building was empty and moved fast. Clothes first. Documents second. Tools, chargers, personal files. Everything that belonged to me came off the shelves and out of the drawers. What stayed behind was neutral, shared, easy to mistake for permanent. I didn't break anything. I didn't rearrange a thing. Before leaving, I placed my keys on the kitchen counter where she always dropped hers. Next to them, I left a single sheet of paper. It didn't accuse or explain. It only acknowledged that the week had begun and that I wouldn't interfere with it. That night, I didn't wait to see if she came home late. I was already unpacking essentials into a place she didn't know existed. The pause she asked for had started, just not the way she planned. The first 2 days passed without noise. No calls. No questions. My phone stayed still on the nightstand of the new apartment, screen dark, alarms set only for work. I went in early, ran inspections, signed off on reports, left without lingering. When I came back at night, the place felt neutral, like a hotel that didn't expect anything from me. Late Wednesday evening, a message came through. She asked how things were going and where I was staying. The wording was light, almost professional, like she was checking on a colleague who'd changed offices. I didn't answer right away. An hour later, I sent a short reply saying everything was fine and that I'd rented a place. Another pause. Then a second message followed, asking if it was temporary. I didn't clarify. I said we'd see. Thursday morning, my phone lit up again, this time with her name calling. I let it ring while walking through the plant, hard hat on, clipboard tucked under my arm. When it stopped, I sent a single message saying I was tied up at work and we could talk later. We didn't. That evening, she drove back to the apartment we shared. The building's security camera logged her entry time automatically. She unlocked the door and walked into rooms that hadn't changed, except for the absence. Closets opened. Drawers slid out. The bathroom shelf stayed half empty. She called again. I answered this time. Her voice came through sharper than usual, asking if I'd really taken everything. I told her she'd asked for space. She said that wasn't what she meant. I said I knew. She tried to say more. I ended the call before she finished. From that moment on, the messages changed. They grew longer, softer, urgent in a way they hadn't been before. By Thursday night, she wasn't testing the week anymore. She was trying to stop it from becoming permanent. By Friday, the messages stopped pretending to be calm. They came in blocks, long paragraphs stacked one after another while I was on site, checking containment systems and signing off on compliance logs. Each vibration came through my pocket and stayed unanswered until lunch, then longer after that. When I finally opened them, they asked to meet, to explain, to fix what I was apparently misunderstanding. I didn't agree to any of it. I sent one reply saying the week wasn't over yet and that we'd talk after. That was the last message I sent her during the pause she'd requested. Friday afternoon, I left work early and drove straight to an office park on the other side of town. The building directory listed a family law firm on the third floor. I filled out intake forms, showed my ID, and signed where I was told. The paperwork moved faster than I expected. By the time I left, the decision was already processed into something official. The following Monday morning, while I was reviewing incident reports at my desk, she received the documents. Her call came through immediately. I didn't answer it. The second call came through louder, angrier. I let it go. A third followed, then a voicemail notification. Later that evening, I returned one call. Her voice came through unsteady, jumping between anger and disbelief, asking what this was and why it was happening now. I didn't raise my voice or slow it down. I referenced Tuesdays. I referenced the same restaurant. I referenced the last 2 months. I told her she'd asked for a week so I wouldn't interfere and that I'd given her all the remaining time instead. The line went quiet. Then she asked how I knew. I told her my job was identifying risks before they became incidents. I ended the call. After that, I didn't pick up again. The address change went through the HR system automatically. I noticed it only because payroll sent a confirmation email. 2 days later, during a routine safety briefing on the floor, my coworker caught it too. He'd been with the company longer than I had, former military, the kind of person who didn't circle around questions. We were standing near the equipment lockers when he glanced at the clipboard in my hand and asked if I was moving or if something else was happening. I nodded once and said I was separating. He didn't react the way people usually do. He just leaned back against the metal cabinet and asked if she'd asked for space. I looked at him long enough for the answer to land without saying it. He let out a short breath, not a laugh, and said he'd seen it before, more times than he could count. He said when someone asks for a pause, it's rarely about thinking things through. It's about wanting time without witnesses. He didn't lower his voice or dress it up. He said it like he was pointing out a cracked seal on a pressure line. He told me I'd handled it clean. Said most people argue, negotiate, or wait. He said giving someone exactly what they ask for tends to reveal what they actually wanted. Then he checked his watch, picked up his helmet, and walked back onto the floor like the conversation was complete. We went back to work without mentioning it again. No follow-up, no advice, just the understanding that the system was already moving forward. By the end of the week, the apartment paperwork was finalized, my routines had shifted, and my name was removed from shared accounts without discussion. Nothing about it felt dramatic at work, which made the silence everywhere else louder. I ran into her 5 weeks later under fluorescent lights in a grocery store near my new place. It wasn't planned. I was halfway down an aisle, basket in one hand, when I saw her standing near the self-checkout, staring at the screen like it wasn't responding fast enough. She looked thinner. Her hair was pulled back without the usual effort. No phone in her hand this time. She noticed me when I stepped closer. Her body went still before her face reacted. Then she tried to smile, the way people do when they need something to stay normal. She said my name and asked if we could talk for a minute. I checked my watch and told her she had 5. We walked out into the parking lot together. Cars passed behind us. Carts rattled. Engines started and stopped. She stood too close, like distance might undo what had already happened. She started talking immediately, saying that things with Mark had been a mistake, that it hadn't meant anything serious, that she hadn't thought I'd take the week the way I did. I didn't raise my voice or interrupt her at first. I let her finish the sentence she'd rehearsed. Then I said Tuesday. I said every week. I said 2 months. I said the same restaurant. I said she hadn't wanted space. She'd wanted an alibi. Her face drained before she spoke again. She tried to correct me, said that wasn't fair, said I didn't understand how complicated it had been. I told her she'd offered a trial week so I wouldn't ask questions, and that I'd accepted it exactly as it was offered. When I stepped away, she didn't follow. She stayed where she was, keys still in her hand, watching me walk toward my car like she'd missed the moment to stop it. I drove off before the timer on my watch ran out. I didn't hear about the fallout right away. It came in fragments, passed along by people who didn't know they were delivering updates. A former neighbor mentioned seeing her car parked outside the apartment more often during the day. A mutual acquaintance said the agency had gone quiet online, fewer announcements, fewer wins. About 2 months after the week ended, someone from her office recognized my name at a conference and connected it without realizing I was listening. The consulting project that had consumed her calendar was gone. The contract ended early, no public explanation, just a sudden stop. The agency lost its largest client of the year, the one everyone had built their forecasts around. Her role changed not long after. The title dropped first, then the responsibilities. She stopped leading meetings and started coordinating them. Her desk moved away from the windows. The raise she'd been expecting didn't come. Her paycheck shrank instead. I saw the confirmation by accident while scrolling through LinkedIn one night. Mark Kingston had posted a photo taken somewhere bright and expensive. He stood beside a woman I didn't recognize, her hand angled toward the camera, a ring catching the light. The caption said he'd finally said yes to settling down. The date on the post landed 3 months after the Tuesdays had begun. She wasn't in the picture. She wasn't mentioned. The comments filled with congratulations from people who'd once sat across from her at dinners labeled as work. The pattern finished itself without my involvement. The client moved on. The agency absorbed the loss. Mark announced a future that didn't include her. By the time the post stopped circulating, her silence online had become noticeable. So had his absence from her calendar. 6 months after she asked for the week, her name appeared on my phone again. No calls this time. Just a single message that sat unread until the end of my shift. When I opened it later, the text filled the screen without urgency, like something written after the damage was already done. She said she'd been wrong. She said the week hadn't been about clarity, it had been about avoiding guilt. She admitted she'd told herself that if we were on pause, it didn't count. She wrote that Mark disappeared a month after I left, said things had become complicated, and stopped answering altogether. She listed what followed in order: the demotion, the pay cut, the apartment she couldn't afford alone anymore. She ended it by asking what all of it had been for. I didn't reply. I locked the screen and set the phone face down on the counter, the same way she used to. The next morning, I went to work early. The plant was already loud, systems running the way they were designed to, alarms quiet, indicators steady. I signed off on a report and moved on to the next one without interruption. That evening, I passed a restaurant on my way home. Through the window, I saw couples leaning across tables, phones ignored, conversations uninterrupted. I didn't slow down. I drove past and turned into my building instead. Later that night, I deleted the message without answering it.